The kitchen light spilled into the hallway where I stood frozen, a box of old photographs balanced against my hip. My mother's voice cut through the walls, casual and certain, like she was discussing weekend plans. "We'll wait until Megan's overseas. 3 weeks is plenty of time to get a locksmith in there, clear out her stuff, and get it listed. $1 million wipes out Tiffany's credit cards and sets her up somewhere decent." My father's response came quick, approving. "The market's hot right now. We could close before she even lands back in the States. By then it's done." The box slipped. I caught it before it hit the floor, my fingers white-knuckled against the cardboard. They were talking about my grandfather's penthouse, the one he'd left to me, the only thing in 34 years that had ever been mine alone. My name is Megan Hartwell. I'm 34, and I spent most of my life getting the leftovers while my sister got everything on a silver platter. This is the story of how I turned their trap into my justice. I pressed my back against the wall, heart slamming so hard I could feel it in my teeth. Through the doorway, I watched my father's shadow shift as he pulled out his phone. "I'll call Tiffany's cousin Nicole tomorrow. She can help with the moving. We'll tell her it's temporary, that Tiffany just needs a place to crash for a bit. She won't ask questions." My mother nodded, already mentally spending money that wasn't hers. Tiffany's been drowning since that trip to Cabo and that shopping spree last month. She needs this fresh start. Megan has her career. She can find something smaller. Something smaller. Like the cramped studio I'd lived in for years while they funded Tiffany's photography hobby, her gap year in Europe, her finding herself phase that never seemed to end. The betrayal tasted metallic, like blood in my mouth from biting the inside of my cheek to keep silent. They weren't just planning to take my home, they were plotting it with the same casual certainty they'd used my whole life when redirecting resources to my sister. I slipped out the front door before they could discover me, the box of photographs forgotten in my car. The drive back to the penthouse felt like moving through water. Chicago's lights blurred past as I replayed their words, each phrase landing like a punch. Hire a locksmith, clear out her things, list it before she knows. They'd been so confident, so matter-of-fact, like stealing from their own daughter was just another item on a to-do list. When I finally stepped into the penthouse, the familiar scent of old books and polished wood wrapped around me like armor. My grandfather's space. Papa Victor had lived here for 30 years, and every corner held a piece of him. The floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Lake Michigan, the grand piano he loved to dust but rarely played, the shelves lined with leather-bound novels he'd read to me during childhood summers, while my parents were off at Tiffany's dance recitals. He'd seen the truth about our family long before I fully understood it. He watched how my father Derek and my mother Sandra poured everything into Tiffany, 6 years younger, and somehow always the sun around which our family orbited. When Tiffany wanted dance lessons at 10, my parents signed her up for the most expensive studio in the city without blinking. I was 16 then, trying to scrape together dues for the debate club, a fraction of what they spent on her. My father shook his head, said money was tight that year. The next week, they surprised Tiffany with a new laptop. I learned to stop asking. My straight A report cards earned a glance before my father turned to praise Tiffany's finger paintings like they belonged in the Art Institute. My mother's eyes only lit up when discussing my sister's latest passion project, so I worked. Library shifts, tutoring on weekends, covering the extras they claimed we couldn't afford for me. Papa Victor noticed everything. He'd slip into my room with a slice of pie or invite me downtown for weekends at the penthouse. He taught me chess by that window overlooking the lake, telling me to think several moves ahead and never reveal my strategy too soon. He celebrated my wins, the scholarship I earned myself, the internship I landed with no connections, all while my parents were off at Tiffany's recitals. "They love the version of themselves they see in her," he once whispered, "the creative, charming one who reflects their dreams. In you, they see the practical, independent side they'd rather not acknowledge. It scares them because it reminds them of their own limitations." When I graduated college with honors, working nights to pay tuition, Papa Victor was the only one in the audience. My parents sent a card, busy with Tiffany's latest adventure overseas. Now the penthouse was mine, not just property, proof that someone had truly seen me. And they wanted to steal it to bail out my sister's shopping addiction. The rage crystallized into something colder, sharper. They assumed I'd be halfway across the ocean, oblivious to their scheme. They didn't know I would never board that plane, and they certainly didn't know what would be waiting for them when they walked through that door. 3 days passed before the weekly family dinner. I spent them planning, rehearsing my performance, and retrieving the box of photographs from my car. Old photos of me and Papa Victor from the summers he'd been my sanctuary. I placed them on the mantel in the penthouse where they belonged. At the next family dinner, I played my part perfectly. My mother's spread covered the table. Roast chicken, mashed potatoes, the green beans Tiffany always requested. My father carved the meat. Tiffany chatted about her latest project. Nicole had joined us, last minute as usual, bringing wine and good intentions. I waited until conversation lulled before mentioning it casually. My company just confirmed a big client meeting in London, 3 weeks in Europe, flying out Friday, back mid-month. My mother's fork froze. 3 weeks? That's a long time. Are you sure you can be away? Important account, I said, helping myself to more potatoes. They want in-person presentations. My father wiped his hands, nodding. Europe in the fall isn't bad. You'll get decent weather. Tiffany's smile didn't reach her eyes. Sounds exciting. Where are you staying? Hotel near the office district. Nothing fancy, but convenient. I watched them exchange glances. Quick, subtle, the kind of silent communication parents think their children don't notice. I noticed. Friday morning arrived gray and cold. Instead of heading to O'Hare, I drove to a hotel in the Loop. The clerk handed me a key card without a second glance. The room overlooked the river, anonymous and perfect for surveillance. I'd ordered the cameras online days earlier, delivered to the hotel under my company name. That evening, I slipped into the penthouse through the service entrance, avoiding the main lobby where neighbors might spot me. The cameras were small, legal, blending with the decor. I placed them in the living room, hallway, and kitchen, covering every entry point, every angle. The app showed crystal clear feeds with full audio, motion alerts configured to notify me instantly. I called the non-emergency police line next, explaining the situation calmly. The officer listened to the recording I'd made, their voices clear, their plan explicit, and took it seriously. He gave me a case number and promised a unit would be ready to respond when the alerts triggered. I provided secure access to the live camera feed. Then I waited. 2 days later, the notification chimed. A locksmith van pulled up to the building. My father met the driver at the door, gesturing toward the entrance while my mother scanned the street for witnesses. Tiffany arrived minutes later with empty boxes. Nicole followed, looking uncomfortable but staying silent. They gathered in the lobby, took the elevator up. The locksmith knelt by my door, tools clicking as he worked the smart lock. My chest tightened watching them, my own family standing in my hallway, breaking into my home. The lock clicked open. They filed inside like they belonged there. My mother headed straight for my bedroom. Tiffany pulled books from shelves, stacking them in boxes. Nicole hesitated at the entryway before starting to wrap kitchen items. My father dialed his phone. "Yes, it's vacant now," he said to whoever answered. "We can get photos tomorrow and list it by the end of the week." I called the police. "They're inside," I told the officer. "I'm watching them right now." The response was immediate. Within minutes, 2 officers appeared in my hallway feed, badges visible. They knocked firmly. "Chicago Police, open the door." The camera caught everything. My father turned first, his face going gray. My mother dropped a box, my grandmother's china shattering against the floor. Tiffany froze with my sweater bunched in her hands, eyes wide with the shock of someone who's never faced a consequence in her life. Nicole backed against the wall, mouth open. "We have a report of unauthorized entry," the officer said. "Step back and identify yourselves." My father tried to recover. "This is a family matter. We have access." The officer held up his phone, the recording already playing. Their own voices filled the room, planning the break-in, discussing the locksmith, talking about selling my home before I returned. They separated everyone for questioning. The locksmith was called back as a witness. Officers documented the scene, boxes packed with my belongings. The real estate agent on speaker. The clear evidence of criminal intent. They issued citations for criminal trespass. My father stood silent for once. My mother covered her face. Tiffany started crying, finally understanding that actions have consequences. Nicole stared at the floor. The officers warned them to leave immediately and not return. The group filed out, boxes abandoned, the locksmith shaking his head as he followed. The door closed. The penthouse fell quiet. I sat back in my hotel room, adrenaline fading into exhaustion. The line had been crossed, and there was no going back. By the following week, the story had taken on a life of its own. News spread fast through Chicago's connected circles. The building's app buzzed with posts about police cars at the penthouse level. Neighbors speculated about family disputes. Friends texted asking if everything was okay. I kept responses short, a legal matter being handled. The fallout hit Tiffany first. Her marketing firm had strict policies about personal conduct affecting company reputation. Someone in our social circle posted about the police presence on a neighborhood forum, and one of Tiffany's coworkers recognized the family name. The story spread through their office within days. Within a week, they let her go. My parents hired a lawyer, filing suit to contest the will. They claimed Papa Victor had been influenced, that he'd lacked capacity when signing. The paperwork arrived at my hotel demanding my appearance. My attorney reviewed everything and almost laughed. The will was ironclad, notarized, witnessed by medical professionals confirming his sound mind, language leaving the penthouse to me, alone with no ambiguity. Court dates came and went. My parents' lawyer pushed for discovery, requested records, filed motions. Every attempt failed. Nicole provided a deposition admitting she'd been asked to help move items, but hadn't known about the locksmith or the sale plan. Her testimony weakened their case further. The judge dismissed claims of undue influence. Legal fees mounted. Over $10,000 my parents hadn't anticipated spending. The public nature of the filing fueled more online discussion. Tiffany struggled to find work, her resume tainted. She moved back home with my parents. The financial help they'd planned to give her reversed. Now they needed help themselves. My father stopped attending community events. My mother avoided social gatherings where questions might arise. Tiffany sent one message 3 weeks after the arrest, a half apology that blamed circumstances more than herself. "You know I was desperate," she wrote. "Mom and Dad said it would work out for everyone." I didn't respond. Some bridges aren't worth rebuilding. A message came from Nicole one afternoon. She apologized for getting involved, said she'd believed it was just temporary help for Tiffany. Seeing the police changed everything for her. She asked if we could talk. I read her words several times. They were sincere, but the hurt ran deep. I thanked her politely and said I needed space. Not harsh, just firm. The boundary I had to set. The final hearing confirmed the will's enforcement. My parents paid court costs on top of their own expenses. No appeal followed. The months after brought a silence I never expected. The calls stopped. The messages dried up. The family group chat excluded me without a word. My mother attempted one final call the week after the court ruling, but I let it ring. There was nothing left to say that wouldn't unravel me. Tiffany learned to stand on her own for the first time, taking freelance gigs, living at home, facing reality without a safety net. My parents dealt with financial strain and social isolation, tightening their budget in ways they'd never experienced. I moved back into the penthouse, the space feeling larger and more peaceful without the tension. I rearranged furniture, added plants to the balcony, and turned Papa Victor's study into a home office. One weekend, cleaning out a drawer, I found an envelope tucked behind old files, his handwriting on the front, my name in careful script. Inside was a letter dated just months before he passed. He wrote about watching me grow into someone resilient and kind despite the imbalances at home. He praised the way I'd handled challenges alone, earning every achievement through effort. He explained the penthouse was his way of giving me a foundation, a place where I could always feel chosen. "You are enough, Megan. You always were. Don't let anyone make you doubt that." I sat in his chair, the letter in my hands, tears coming without warning. For years, I'd measured myself against the attention Tiffany received, wondering what I lacked. Papa Victor had always known the truth. The tears were for losing him, for the family I thought I had, for the relief of finally releasing that weight. The silence that followed felt different after that. Not empty, but freeing. No more waiting for approval that would never come. No more justifying my choices. The penthouse became truly mine. I hosted friends for dinners, worked late with the lake view as company, tended the plants Papa Victor had loved. Their choices led to consequences they couldn't escape. Financial strain, social isolation, the realization that favoritism has a cost. For me, the lesson was simpler. I deserved the space Papa Victor gave me, and I no longer needed their validation to claim it. Family isn't always blood. It's the people who see your worth without conditions. Thank you for staying until the end. If you've ever faced something similar, family pressure, betrayal, or the fight to protect what's rightfully yours, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Sharing these experiences reminds us we're not alone. Take care, and I'll see you in the next one. The restaurant patio fell silent. Glasses froze mid-air. My smile remained fixed, but something had shifted. "Then let Daniel pay your bills," I said, the words slipping out with surprising calm. I placed my napkin on the table, stood up, and walked away from my own graduation dinner. Away from the father who had just told me, "You don't deserve your success." That single moment crystallized everything. The laughter stopped. The clink of utensils against plates vanished. My father blinked slowly, processing what I'd said, but I knew exactly what I meant. For the first time in my life, I had spoken without second-guessing myself. I had worked relentlessly through Oak Haven University, scholarships, late-night tutoring sessions, weekend shifts that left my feet aching. I paid for everything myself, no family help, no safety net. Just determination and countless sleepless nights. Yet I wanted to celebrate with them. I spent nearly all my savings to rent this restaurant patio, hired a musician, ordered everyone's favorite foods. I wanted the night to feel special, a new beginning. It became one, just not in the way I expected. Everyone showed up. My quiet mother, who never contradicted my father, my aunt and uncle perpetually caught between supporting me and staying neutral. My little cousins playing with the balloons I'd carefully arranged that morning. And my father, late, slightly drunk, wearing a wrinkled fishing shirt instead of the nice clothes I'd asked everyone to wear. Daniel didn't come. He rarely did. But my father couldn't stop talking about him all night. "You don't deserve this success," my father said, raising his glass like he was making a toast. "Daniel did." He wasn't joking. He wasn't too drunk to know what he was saying. He meant every word, and they cut through me like glass. In that moment, I realized I'd spent my entire life hoping he would say he was proud of me, but I knew now he never would. So I raised my glass and said, "Great. Then he can start paying your bills too." I didn't yell. I didn't have to. Everyone heard me clearly. A few people even smiled, not because it was funny, but because they understood. I set my glass down, looked at my father one last time, and left without another word. I couldn't go home. Home didn't feel safe anymore, so I drove aimlessly, eventually stopping at Lookout Point, a cliff overlooking the city where people went to think. The cold night air rushed through my open windows, but I welcomed it. It kept me awake, alert, present. All I could hear in my head was his voice. "You don't deserve this success. Daniel did." I had worked for everything I had, my degree, my job, my independence. What had Daniel done? He dropped out after one semester, yet my father still called him the smart one. I started working at 16 to buy my own school clothes while Daniel could barely hold a job but received endless praise. The inequality had always been there, but I didn't realize how deep it ran until my third year of college. I came home one weekend and discovered Daniel's tuition had been paid in full. Meanwhile, I worked 3 jobs to cover my own expenses. I told myself maybe they couldn't help me or thought I didn't need assistance. But that night, hearing my father praise Daniel while completely ignoring everything I'd accomplished, I finally saw the truth. Standing at Lookout Point with the city lights blinking below me, I whispered, "It ends now." I wasn't just talking about that night. I meant the pretending, the silent hope, the constant need to prove myself. I was done trying to make people care who never would. I'd spent years trying to be noticed, but it never happened. My family wasn't evil. They just didn't care about me. They only remembered me when it was convenient, when they needed help with taxes, computer problems, or rides. They didn't hate me. They simply didn't think about me at all. That realization stayed with me for days. I didn't answer calls or messages. My aunt texted that my father wasn't himself. My mother left a voicemail saying I shouldn't let one moment ruin everything. But it wasn't just one moment. It was all the little things accumulated over years. The times they praised Daniel and ignored me. Like when I talked about my future, and my father said I was too much, but later bragged about Daniel starting a band that never even played a single show. All the frustration I had buried for years started surfacing. Old memories I hadn't thought about for years came flooding back. The time I broke my arm in high school and still got blamed for missing practice, while Daniel failed every class and got rewarded with a trip to Florida to relax. Or the day I opened my college acceptance letter and my father said, "Don't count on us to pay for anything." I wasn't counting on it. I never had. But I had given everything I had, my time, my money, my energy, my silence. Eventually, I had nothing left to give. There wasn't a dramatic moment where I screamed or broke down. I just stopped. Stopped reaching out. Stopped replying. Stopped hoping they'd change. They always wanted me to be the quiet, dependable one, the one who helped but stayed in the background. I'd played that role for so long that I almost forgot I didn't have to anymore. The decision didn't come with a lightning bolt of realization. It happened on a regular Tuesday. Just a normal, boring Tuesday, 2 days after the dinner. I woke up, made coffee, sat at my small kitchen table, and looked at the only photo from my graduation. It was taken before I left the restaurant. In the background, people were laughing. Food covered the table. Balloons floated in the air. But I wasn't looking at any of that. I was looking at myself. I didn't look proud or relieved. I looked exhausted, like someone who had carried something heavy for so long they forgot it was okay to put it down. That's when I picked up my phone, not to text or call, but to block. First my father, then my mother, then Daniel, then the family group chat that only remembered me when they needed help. One by one, I shut them out. No speeches, no social media posts. I just turned down the noise. Then I started packing. I had stayed in that apartment out of habit. It was close enough for them to call me, but far enough to feel like I had some space. But it never felt like mine. It was just a place between trying and giving up. I sold most of my possessions, used the money to pay off some student loans, handed my lease to a coworker. In 2 weeks, I was gone. New apartment, new city, new phone number, no goodbyes, no explanations. The only thing I took was my diploma. I framed it and hung it above my desk, not to impress anyone, but as a reminder to myself that I did it alone, that it mattered, even if no one else acknowledged it. It was strange how loud life had felt when they were still in it, their words, their judgments, their backhanded comments. The constant thought, should I text them? Maybe this time they'll understand. But when all that noise went away, I thought I'd feel lonely. I didn't. I felt lighter. That first night in my new apartment, I sat on the floor. No couch, no bed, just a mattress and a box of food. It was quiet. Not the kind of silence that makes you anxious, but the kind that feels peaceful, like air slowly filling your lungs. I didn't check my phone, didn't scroll, didn't wonder who was trying to reach me. I already knew what I'd see. Missed calls, guilt-tripping texts, the same old attempts to pull me back. But I had blocked all of it. Not to hurt them, but because there was nothing left to explain to people who had already decided who I was. In that silence, I started to remember who I used to be. I remembered how much I loved cooking before every family meal turned into a moment to be judged. So the second night, I made myself something real, roasted vegetables, garlic bread, and pasta. But I ate it at a table I put together myself. I remembered I used to sketch. While unpacking, I found old notebooks filled with drawings I hadn't looked at in years. I spent a few nights drawing again. No fear of being watched, no pressure, just me and my art. Little by little, new people started to appear in my life. There was Thomas, who lived nearby. He invited me to his game nights with friends. Then there was Laura, who I met at a bookstore. We started talking over coffee. My coworkers began seeing me as more than just the dependable one. They actually wanted to hear my thoughts, my ideas. They didn't know about the years I spent trying to win my family's affection, and I wasn't about to explain it. They just liked me for who I was now. I didn't have to prove anything. About 3 months after that dinner, I got home from work one evening when there was a knock at my door. 3 sharp knocks. Not a neighbor, not a delivery. I froze. When I opened it, there was my mother. She looked different, smaller somehow, like she was trying to seem confident but couldn't quite manage it. I was nearby, she said. Like that explained everything. Figured I'd drop by. I didn't say anything. I just held the door slightly open, letting her decide what to say next. She looked around the apartment, almost surprised that I had built a life separate from them. "Your father's been asking about you," she said. I raised an eyebrow. "He's not feeling well. He misses you." That was it. The guilt was there, but I didn't react the way I used to. I just said he had the chance to say that at the party and calmly closed the door. No hate, just certainty. 7 days later, I got a voicemail from an unknown number. I almost ignored it, but the time caught my attention. 2:43 a.m. Nobody calls at that hour unless they've been drinking or are emotional. I sat on the edge of my bed, stared at the screen, and hesitated. Eventually, I hit play. It was my father. His voice was slow and controlled. "What's your deal?" he said. "You've always acted like you were above us, like the world owes you something. You finished your degree. Good for you, but don't pretend you did it all on your own. You come from us, and sooner or later, you'll come back." The line cut off. No apology, no acknowledgement, just more of the same. But this time, his words didn't affect me. They only confirmed what I already knew. I didn't belong to their story anymore. And that realization brought me peace. When I heard the voicemail, I didn't feel angry. I didn't cry. I just sat in my apartment looking at the lights and realized I was done. Not broken, not crushed, just done. It's strange how final something can feel without a big moment. No shouting, no explosion, just silence. I listened to a voice that used to matter, and now it was nothing. It felt like hearing someone I once knew, but they no longer had any impact on my life. That voicemail was the last time I heard him speak. I didn't block the number, didn't respond. I just left it there. Like all the questions I used to ask myself, not reacting brought me more peace than arguing ever could. Things didn't become perfect, but they became real. I found work that felt right for me. Nothing fancy, just steady income. I also started doing freelance design work that let me be creative again. Those projects helped me remember I wasn't just what my family made me feel like. Slowly, my apartment started to feel like home. Bookshelves filled with books I loved. A secondhand dining table with mismatched chairs that somehow worked together. A framed picture of me in my cap and gown, smiling not to show off, but because I was proud of myself. I made new friends who didn't want anything from me, and I didn't feel guilty about it. Thomas, my neighbor, became a real friend. One night we had beers, and I told him everything. He wasn't surprised or awkward. He just handed me another drink and said, "Some families lift you up, some tear you apart. Looks like yours did both." Laura and I started spending more time together too. It was slow, steady, and real. No games, no drama. Just two people who had been hurt but were still willing to try. That made it special. I didn't rebuild my life to show anyone anything. I did it because I finally believed I deserved a good life. Not because of what I achieved or suffered, but because everyone deserves to feel loved and cared for without earning it. One afternoon, while I was hanging a new picture on the wall, my phone rang. 37 missed calls, all from people I used to know. The same people who only remembered me when they wanted something. I looked at the screen, turned the sound off, and went back to hanging the frame. It was a quiet Sunday, the kind of day where everything felt peaceful and the sun made the world look softer. I was walking home from the coffee shop holding a warm loaf of sourdough and 2 iced drinks, one for me, one for Laura. She was waiting for me at my apartment, flipping through the record collection we'd been building together. I wasn't thinking about my family at all until I turned the corner and saw my mother's car parked outside. It hadn't been there in almost a year. I stopped walking. My heart stayed calm. My mind didn't panic. She was standing by the front door of my building, looking up at the windows like she didn't know which one was mine anymore. She hadn't seen me yet. I stood a little farther down the street and watched. She was holding something, maybe a letter. Maybe it said, "We miss you," or "Your father didn't mean it," or "Can we talk?" But I didn't need to read it. I already knew how that story would go. I didn't call her name, didn't walk up to her, didn't turn around. I just walked by slow and calm. She looked up as I crossed the street and we made eye contact. She opened her mouth to speak, but I gave her nothing. No wave, no smile, no look, just silence. Not to hurt her, but to protect my peace. I had already forgiven her quietly, without a speech. But forgiveness doesn't mean letting someone back in, especially when they don't know how to approach you. I went upstairs to my apartment. Laura was there, barefoot, hair tied up, playing an old record. It felt like a peaceful movie scene. She smiled when she saw me. I handed her the drink and kissed her cheek like nothing had happened, because to me, nothing had. The past stayed outside, but I was already home. My diploma hangs above my desk now. Simple black frame, no lights, no special display. Just quiet proof of what I did when no one was cheering me on. Sometimes in the evening I sit under it with a warm cup of coffee, the window open, soft music playing. That's my favorite part of the day. The quiet, the peace, the reminder of who I've become. My phone sits beside me, still full of missed calls. Some from my mother, some from distant relatives who only called when they needed something. Even a few from unknown numbers I could guess. I don't block them anymore, but I don't answer either. What would I say? That I'm okay now? That I'm happy? That I found love, real friends, and peace, not because of them, but despite everything they did? I don't owe them that story. I lived it. That's enough.